Good morning, buenos dias, bonjour. Thank you for coming to the Daily Huddle, Spiritual Thursdays. I am your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and we are going to continue the summer series today with our talking about spiritual disciplines, specifically today, nutrition or food as a spiritual discipline. And I found the perfect quote to embody not just what we're going to be talking about today, but the entire summer series. And that is, spiritual disciplines of themselves can do nothing. They can only get us to the place where something can be done. I love it. I couldn't have said it better myself, and I didn't. It's from the book Celebration of Discipline, The Path to Spiritual Growth by Richard Foster. So today specifically, we're going to be talking about how does nutrition support your spiritual disciplines? How can you use it as a spiritual discipline itself? So welcome to the Daily Huddle. Oh, percussion is just so good for the soul, isn't it? I love that we are here together. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get grounded, shall we? Let's get grounded in the present moment. Let's get grounded in the now. And I'm going to ask you, as we always do here at the Daily Huddle, I'm going to start with you, Rashida. Where are you and what are you thankful for?
I am right here, right now, where I'm supposed to be. And I'm grateful and thankful for the awakening this morning. Back to you.
All right. Wait, you're thankful for what now?
For my awakening this morning.
Awakening, being awake this morning. Yes, yes, Lord have mercy. Some folks didn't. And we are here being proof that God is faithful. All right. So Chase, Chase, how are you? And who are you hugging today?
Grand Rising.
Hello?
Great to see you. I'm pensive today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pensive. Who am I gonna hug today? I'm gonna hug. I think I'm gonna hug someone who needs a hug today. I'm gonna seek that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Can be an anonymous person. I'm gonna work that out. I'll give you the feedback on that.
Spreading the love. You know, my good friend Terry Lynn, rest her soul. She's been gone almost 10 years. But she was such a big walking naked heart on the planet. She used to go to Hollywood Beach, Florida, because she lived in South Florida, and she used to do like the free hug campaign.
Yes, the hug signs. Yes.
I think she saw it online and she's like, okay, let's do it. And then she just started spreading it. So that's awesome. That what you just said reminds me of that. Awesome. Thank you. And our good friend Robin Stern is back for the shenanigans here at the Daily Huddle. Robin, what time is it over there?
I think the time is now, and we are present in the now.
Yes, absolutely. And we are so thankful that you are here with us today and now. I want to get us talking about nutrition or our food as a spiritual discipline. Because if you see yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience, then everything you are and do is a spiritual discipline, or can be. And if you consider that the word itself, the word discipline, means the practice, a code of behavior for a higher vision, There are several definitions of discipline. And it has been one of the reductive ways in which we look at discipline sometimes is a group of rules that you use to punish or penalize for the sake of enforcing obedience or perfecting moral character. But if you really think about it, it's really the practice and the development in order to master one's self. And so if we think about all the inputs, right, not only the mental inputs, such as, for example, what you read or the music you listen to or the books you read or the TV shows that you watch, or in this case, streaming shows that you watch. Those are some of the inputs. But another input is, of course, what you eat, what you put in your actual literal biological mouth, right? And throughout history, human beings have used practices that are very quotidian, that are very kind of like day-to-day, mundane, typical things, and have used it in devotion to the divine. In fact, the word sacrifice means to give up the lesser for the greater. So it's not so much like any kind of denial of self in a way, unless you're attached to the lower thing. But it really is just saying, I'm going to give up the lower thing for the greater thing. That's what sacrifice is, really. And so when you think about, for example, outlining your diet in alignment with a particular goal, some people use their diet or fine-tune their nutrition based on wanting to lose weight, based on wanting to gain muscle, based on wanting to regulate their hormones, based on wanting to fit into a particular dress by summer, or if it's too late because it's already July, fit it by your, class reunion by September or whatever, or the anniversary or the wedding or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times we have a particular physical objective, but if you can think of using physical phenomena such as food as a way to highlight and develop yourself in the spiritual phenomena, such as concentration or humility, etc., then it tracks how you can use food as a spiritual discipline. Also, food has spiritual energy. It has an actual vibration. That's why sometimes when you eat certain things, you don't feel good. And when you eat other things, you feel great. Part of that is the inherent vibrational energy that is in that particular food item. And the other is how it interacts with your vibration and where you are at. That's why there are some people that it's like they could just, let's say use alcohol, for example. They could just drink and drink and drink, and they have a high level of tolerance, and some people get real jovial and funny and cute and social and everything else. And then there are others that they get morose and they get withdrawn, and it's like, I need a nap now. And if I go any longer, I'm going to become a mean person, or whatever the case may be. Same thing happens with sugar. Some folks get really amazingly social. It's like, oh, a cake, oh, tres leches, oh, a dessert, or, food, pasta. And it becomes a vehicle, a mechanism to be social, to be collegial with one another. We use food in connection with one another, not just at the dinner table, not just to meet friends or colleagues, etc., but we also use it in sacred ceremony, in what we offer, and in the spiritual practices of charity, for example, when we donate food or when we serve at a soup kitchen, etc., etc. And so I like the quote for today: spiritual disciplines of themselves can do nothing. They can only get us to the place where something can be done, because it's not the thing itself that has value, but rather the intention that you put behind it and what you're doing it for, right? The objective, the intention is the thing that makes it matter, yeah? And I would be remiss if I talked about, if we had the food chapter in the spiritual discipline series and not talk about fasting. And so part of how we use food in relationship to the divine, and how we use really anything in relationship to the divine, is our withdrawal from it as an offering, as an intention to remove ourselves from the day-to-day so that we can be concentrated on, put our mind on spirit, as it were, stay our mind on spirit. Florence says the purpose for which the thing is used. Yeah, exactly. So some of you that have been with us for a while, you guys know that I am a regular faster. Every winter, I do a 40-day water fast. And people ask me, oh my God, 40 days straight with no food? How do you live? You must disappear. It's like, because sometimes people fast for losing weight. I don't do it for losing weight, although that is a happy accident. But it's more like and I can tell you my experience of it. I don't know what anybody else's experience might be. And just because I may have a common experience with somebody else doesn't mean that that's the experience. Sometimes we seek agreement to make a rule, and that's not necessarily a prerequisite. So my experience of it is that for the first 3 days, very auspiciously the same 3 days that it took the sun to go from the lowest point to begin to rise. So the sun is risen is one of the analogies that we use in a lot of major religions. So for the first 3 days, the conversation for me is, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And I hear the stomach growling, and I'm very tempted to just put something in my mouth. I confront my cravings if there are any present, et cetera, et cetera. It's really just a matter of will to get myself through those first 3 days. And I know that, so when I walk into it, then I'm already mentally prepared for that. But after about the 3rd day, the hormone ghrelin, which is the one that actually sends the signal of hunger to the brain in the stomach, goes away, because ghrelin only interacts with the acid in your stomach, and the acid in your stomach only exists because there's remnants of food there. And so when the food is diminishing and the acid, it's trying to bubble up on something, it's like, oh, we don't have anything. Okay, ghrelin, tell the brain to tell us that we're hungry so we can go get some more food. So when that disappears, then the hunger pangs disappear, and now you can just be present to whatever it is that's coming up. Because we are such a social society that uses food for social reasons as well, it's very interesting that I now have to be very deliberate about thinking about the breakfast dates or the lunch dates or the coffee dates or the dinner dates that I say yes to, or the dinner meetings, et cetera, or that I have to make special concessions for, like, yes, I'll go, but I'm not eating, and I don't want to be challenged about why I'm not eating. I don't want that to be a thing, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you come face to face with the sometimes unconscious ways in which we use food in our day-to-day, then that observation itself becomes a spiritual discipline. Because you start asking yourself about, there are ways that I'm using food that isn't just for nutrition of the body. Sometimes we use food as social connection, emotional connection. Sometimes we use it to numb down feelings. Sometimes we use it to dumb down our boredom, or so that we don't have to look at our loneliness, or so that we don't have to feel a particular emotion. I know that when I'm annoyed and when I am triggered, et cetera, it's very easy for me to seek out sugary things because I want to sweeten my own attitude. All right. I know it's just me. You don't have that problem. I understand. You might look for something else, right? Or if you're angry and you want to kind of like release that anger, that frenetic energy, you might look for crunchy snacks, right? Like potato chips or salty or something like that. That is usually associated with anger and aggression. So I would love to hear from you guys how we're going to assume already use food as a spiritual discipline, just by virtue of being human. That's just kind of like, welcome to the human condition. Because you are human, you eat. Now, how do you use food as a spiritual discipline? And if food were a spiritual discipline, what would your spiritual discipline be? Maybe your spiritual discipline would be debauchery. Maybe your spiritual discipline would be following my physical instincts instead of my spiritual instincts, right? So let's talk about it. I would love to have the floor is open and let's discuss it. Let's explore it together. How do you use food as a spiritual discipline? If you can't say amen, say ouch, but you got to raise your hand.
Ouch. Dr. Ogando,
Yes.
the last sentence you just said, where you might choose debauchery, leads me to terms of spiritual discipline is erroneous. Meaning, when I think of spiritual discipline, I'm thinking, oh, now I have to use food in a way that doesn't give me pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So debauchery didn't come to mind at all. So
Right.
the question I have is, could any experience with food, given that I'm human and I eat, could any experience, could any way of being with food be used as a spiritual discipline?
Absolutely. And here is why one of the tenets that I insisted on including here at the Daily Huddle is check yourself before you wreck yourself. Always audit your assumptions. Because underneath what you just said, and underneath the challenge with debauchery as a spiritual discipline, is that somehow discipline and pleasure do not go together. That somehow, in order to be disciplined, I must deny myself pleasure. And no, that's not necessarily true. In fact, if you notice, most of the things or activities that we engage in as human beings that are just natural to us are pleasurable. So eating is pleasurable, sex is pleasurable, being in connection with another human being is pleasurable, sleeping is pleasurable. There's a lot of biological things that we do that by themselves feel good. And yet, if we use that pleasure to avoid something else, then that's when it becomes an escape mechanism or debauchery, as it were, instead of using it intentionally and deliberately to further ourselves spiritually. So I love that you brought this up because, denying yourself pleasure is not required in order for it to be a discipline. It could be fun.
Question then.
What'd you say?
That's a question for you. When you fast for 40 days, how does it create discipline for you? Do you, during the first 3 days or sometimes during the whole process, do you find yourself being denied something?
Oh, sure. I mean, there are certain social activities that I don't attend because there's going to be food there that I don't want to say no to, or because I don't want it to be a big deal. I don't want it to be a thing of conversation. And so a lot of times I'll avoid certain social situations just because the point of my water fast isn't to beat my chest and, oh, look how amazing I am that I'm doing this thing and I do it every year. It's a very personal and private thing. And if people are just going to be looky-loos, kind of like fascinated by it, but not really interested in the philosophy of it, then I avoid that. And witnessing my own discomfort is also a spiritual discipline. So like when I go through the hunger pangs, it's like I don't need to do anything about being uncomfortable. I could just be with it. I could just show myself some compassion, go take a nap, go drink some more water, go for a walk. Just notice, right? Being present is a spiritual discipline. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And in the process, I've just discovered what I can create as a spiritual discipline with respect to food.
Okay, which is?
I can actually learn more about how onto the food I eat and learn that way. Yeah, like learning about food as opposed to just, well, there's food I need to eat, I'm hungry, just
right,
put it in my mouth. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just being present to your choices is a step further in the awakening process. Yeah. That's good stuff. All right. Cece, you had something? You raised your hand, and then Robin.
Yes, I use the same spiritual discipline of fasting and praying for 40 days every year myself too. Just to get closer to God and to hear. I do that for my own spiritual uplifting, because it affects the mind, body, and the spirit. So I do that just to pray for myself, pray for others, and to hear clearly from God. It empties everything out. And so that's one of the disciplines I use spiritually in my life. So thank you so much for bringing this topic up.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And what is your experience when you fast? What does that do for you? How do you experience yourself when you go through that experience?
It's different each time I do it. More things get revealed and more power from God. And when I read the Bible, it is more illuminative. More things, or I might get healing that I didn't know that I needed healing in. It's all internal. And then vision becomes more, and the hearing becomes more clearer. So my internal conversations are more directed towards God and not myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, you're so welcome, and thank you for sharing. I think sometimes I have a theory, you guys. I don't know how I know this. I just know it to be true. But I have a theory that because the way the world is set up is almost anathema to your spiritual mastery, that some of our cultural practices are deliberately designed to steer you away from it. Not like from a malicious place or whatever, but just from an ignorance place. Yeah, that it's like, that's not what this is about. And so whatever feelings are uncomfortable, whatever experience is painful, we have a lot of numbing agents in our culture. Busyness is a numbing agent. Food is a numbing agent. Sex, shopping, just flipping channels, scrolling through social media. We have a lot of numbing agents that allow us to not be present to our own experience. And so when you remove those numbing agents, or when you use them for presence, right? Because they don't just have one use, you can use them for your own purposes. Then you become awake to being awake, right? Rashida said at the beginning, she's so thankful for being awake, for waking up this morning. But when you're awake to being awake, now here's when the real work begins. Robin, what you got, my friend?
So I'm intrigued because it's the connection. It goes way back, right? This goes back to the times of building a campfire and having just some flour and some oil to make a piece of bread.
Right.
And it was such a spiritual, as commanded by the Lord to have a feast and to call the family and to get together. And it wasn't as much what it was you were eating as the actual interaction and process of the people acknowledging where the food came from and what the family meant. And so I really resonate with what you're saying. At first I was really struggling. I'm like, where's she going with this? But now as I've listened and I've, again, why we do the daily huddle, right? So I have a real tendency to, as a matter of fact, my whole future and my retirement, I want to wrap around the process of nourishing my body, putting things into it that will add to my longevity. My big BHAG for my life is to teach my great-grandchildren how to play Frisbee on the beach. So what goes in,
I love it.
It better resonate really well with my body. It better not produce inflammation and pain and things like that. So the process of seeking out and gathering the food, which is now, a farmer's market or a grocery store rather than a bow and arrow or a club to hit something with, and then preparing it in the mindset of, this is something that is given to me by the Lord. It is commanded to eat together with your family and to have these feasts. It makes it such a different perspective. And in that, it brings a more spiritual and valuable essence to the whole process. right? And I love cooking. My mother put that in me as a child. I was cooking with her when I was like 4 years old, and it connects me back to her.
Yeah.
Every time I cook something really, really tasty, and bottom line, I don't care if anybody else likes it. If I like it, and if it's something that's nourishing my body, I know it's good for the rest of the people eating it, whether they acknowledge that or not. But just that process of seeking, searching, gathering, preparing, providing really fills me in a spiritual way and a deep way that I feel like I'm doing what I was called and intended to do. So thank you for bringing up the topic and allowing my fog to clear as I was listening, because it really worked out well on this one today. Thank you.
Always a gift. And I love what you presenced here in terms of like the actual step-by-step of gathering food or hunting, or in ancient traditions, you actually had to hunter and gather for yourself. But these days you could just Instacart it. So just the actual hunting and gathering of food and preparing it, cleaning it, cooking it, presenting it, and then sitting down together in communion to enjoy it. All of those steps are, possibilities for being present to your spiritual identity and to the spiritual relationship that you create with the folks that you share a meal with and so forth. So thank you for presencing that. Ron, my friend, what you got?
Yeah, that was great. I'm basically picking back up on Robin comment, because in my good old days of Boy Scout, that was the thing. Is the gathering the food, hold on. It is the gathering the food and getting it together. And recently, one of the best experience I've had was, roasting an entire pig with my cousin.
Oh my!
And yeah, and we spent a whole night, over, from 10 o'clock to about 6 o'clock in the morning, and we just talk a storm, things that needed to be cleared, things that were uncovered. So there's a spiritual thing there. But what I'm still struggling with, which I think you mentioned, is the I mean, not that you're struggling with it, but personally I'm struggling with it, is the social impact that fasting has, where you have to really stop you. I mean, like yes, just stop your fasting just to accommodate social gathering, and that's where I'm really trying to create the discipline around. But it's like I said, I'm work in progress in every aspect of my life. So, but I'm glad you brought the subject. In gathering food, making it happen together. It's really where the whole spiritual thing is for me.
Yeah,
it bring a level of bonding that, I mean, like the Boy Scout, my best friends are my 13, 14-year-old guys that I went to Boy Scout with, and I'm still in touch with them.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So that's definitely a spiritual bonding.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
Good, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Florence, what you got? Lorna says, is it Lorna or Laura? Laura, I agree with you, Robin. You brought me back to my lifestyle in Jamaica, gathering the food, the firewood, the cooking together with family members. That's awesome. What you got, Florence?
I would go a step further with Robin was speaking about, because I love cooking. I mean, cooking gives me so much pleasure. But
wait, is that Rashida?
The planting.
Oh, I thought it was Rashida. Your voice is so familiar.
This is Florence.
Florence, sorry.
Yes. But I would go for a step further to even planting the food yourself. Like, oh my God. I told my nephew that I would prefer him to invite me when he is doing his gardening and his planting of his food, than even when he would invite me to a party, because I really connect with the soil and the earth and where the food is coming from. And my heavens, God knows that that is my complete dream, to just plant and eat what I plant from the soil to my stomach. So,
that's
just
beautiful.
the entire process. And I wish that everybody in the world would learn to do that for themselves. I don't like Instacart. Because I didn't choose that food. I don't really want to eat it.
Yeah, because there's magic in the process itself. It's like you're short-circuiting the process. You got to be in it for the whole thing.
Yeah. People always say, oh, get it. You can get it delivered now. Thank you. Bye.
Right.
I can get other things delivered. I can get the cleaning supplies delivered. I can get all sorts of other things delivered. But my food, I want to get it for myself.
Yes, I want to touch the fruit. I want to squeeze the lemon. I want to make, have a connection there before I put it in my cart and go take it home and offer it to my people that I love. I love what you're bringing up here, Florence. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, everybody, for being with us today and engaging in this discussion in the chat, in the comments. We always love sharing with you. Always remember, here at the Daily Huddle, we want you to love generously, to laugh obnoxiously. I know I don't have any problem with it. I even my giggle is loud. Like, I can't even help it. I sound like Betty Rubble when I giggle. So I want you to laugh generously. I want you to give of yourself, your energy, your time, your attention. I want you to move your tail feather, exercise, dance, twerk. Twerking is just a way to raise the Kundalini, baby. Don't fall for the hype. I want you to always stress less and get yourself your 7 or 8 hours of sleep. You are a different person when you are well rested. Okay, don't deny yourself, and don't deny us the privilege of interacting with a well-rested you. And then always check yourself before you wreck yourself. Always audit your assumptions. We're so happy that you are part of our Daily Huddle family. See you next time.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, family.
Everybody.
One love, guys. One love.
I forgot to tell you. Look at this cute thing. This tray